All right, listen up, listen up. Okay, so the quarter one ends next week on Thursday. You guys don't have school on Friday, lucky you. Sadly, teachers still have to be here, but okay, what that means is we're closing out grades. So if you have late work, I am gonna check that right before I put in my grades. I'm not gonna do it along the way unless you email me. So same as what we've been doing. If you've done some late homeworks, let me know so that we're not waiting until the last minute for your grade to be updated on that. Because once I check it on whatever that morning is, I'm not gonna go back and comb through to look for late stuff. Okay, then next class and Monday, I see you 2 more times that you guys have to take what the district is now calling a CIA. Okay, it's basically like a benchmark or a QSA, but basically it's in College Board AP classroom, which is why I need you to join it so that I can assign that to you. So today we're gonna join it, but first we're gonna learn product and quotient rule. Okay, these rules are not super hard. So we're gonna do all of the notes just in one instead of cutting it in half. And then you'll have hopefully at least 45 minutes to work on your Delta math or whatever else you have to work on, okay? So take a look at the top. You are going to use the product rule when you are taking the derivative of 2 functions that are times together. Okay, so you are going to use the product rule when you're taking the derivative of a function times another function. Okay, I'm going to give you the formal definition. Then I'm going to give you the shorter version of that definition. Okay, it would be f of x, g prime of x, plus g of x, f prime of x. Okay, write that down. Okay, then that's a lot of extra letters, okay, with all the X's and stuff like that in the parentheses. So we're gonna shorten that. We're gonna let f of x and g of x just be u and v. And we're gonna make it a less complicated version. It's gonna be u v prime plus v u prime. Okay, this is the one that I'm going to favor. However, if you look in a math textbook, you're gonna see this, okay? So let's take a look at number 1 and I'll show you how to do it. The first thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna look for the pieces of your product. So if I'm looking at number 1, I have a 3x squared sine x. That means that this is my u, this is my v. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write down that my u equals 3x squared, my v equals sine x. Okay, then I'm gonna take the derivative of those pieces separately. So I have a 3x squared. What would the derivative of that piece be? 6x is correct, very good. Okay, then I'm gonna come over to my v, it was a sine x. I'm gonna take the derivative of that piece. What's the derivative of sine x? Cosine x, very good. Okay, then to do your product rule, you see how it's u v prime? Now those are in a diagonal with each other. And then you're gonna plus v u prime is gonna be this diagonal. So you're basically gonna do diagonal plus diagonal. Okay, so let's write it. The derivative of y is called dy dx. And I'm going to do this diagonal plus this diagonal. So it'll be 3x squared cosine x plus 6x and sine x. It really doesn't matter which order you put them in because you're multiplying. Okay. Now this answer is correct. However, when you're taking the AP test, they love to factor things. So if there's a GCF, I want you to take it out. However, for Delta Math, this would be fine, okay? So I'm gonna put here for DM, Delta Math, this is perfect, check. Okay, but for AP, they're gonna want you to factor out anything they have in common. What can both of those terms divide by? 3x, very good. So that would leave me with, my 3x squared would now just be an x cosine x. What would happen to my 6x? 2 sine x, very good. Okay, but these are both correct. Okay, for the AP test, you should write it the second way. Delta math, though, the first version is fine. Okay, let's go down to your second one. Okay, I want to find dy dx, that means the derivative of 5x ln x. Underline your pieces, take your derivatives separately. So my u is going to be a 5x, and my v is going to be an ln x. What will u prime be if u is just a 5x? Okay, 5. And my v prime, does anybody remember the derivative for ln x? Not e.
Oh, 1 over.
Yes, 1 over x, very good. Okay. From there, remember, your derivative is going to be this diagonal plus that diagonal. Okay, so I'm going to put dy dx equals. It's going to be this one. So 5x times 1 over x plus this one would be 5 times ln x. Now, before I even take out a GCF, what could happen in that first term? Yeah, if you have a times x and a divide by x, let's cross those out. That makes that really just a 5 times 1, and 5 times 1 is 5 plus 5 ln x. Then we're going to pull that 5 out. Do I have to leave something here? 1 plus ln x. Okay, remember, you can't just pull the 5 out and leave nothing. So that would be a 1 left. Okay, but remember, as far as AP goes, this first one is fine. No big deal. Or sorry, I said that wrong. As far as delta math goes, first one's fine. Okay, go down to your next one. Okay, we have 2 pieces of our product. Okay, I have an 8 root x times a cosine x. Now, a little bit of a problem here. Okay, if I know that I'm going to have to take the square root, I'm not going to write, or the derivative, I'm not going to write this as square root x. How am I going to write it instead? X to the 1/2. Very good. So I'm going to do my u. It's an 8 root x, but I'm going to write it as an 8x to the 1/2. And then my v, as we've done before, is going to be just cosine x. All right, now let's take our derivative. Okay, let's start with the 8x to the 1/2. Remember, this number is going to times down. What is a 1/2 times down on 8? 4. And then I need to take away 1 from a 1/2. So if it's 1/2, I'm going to take away 2 halves. 1/2 minus 2 halves is -1/2. Very good. Okay, now let's go to my cosine. Okay, remember it's snow cone, bottom 2 are negative. So if I want the derivative of cosine, what's that going to put me at? Negative sign, very good. Okay, so now let's write our derivative. Remember, it's diagonal plus diagonal. So I'm going to do dy dx equals this plus this. Okay, so I have 8x to the 1/2 times negative sine x, 4x to the -1/2 cosine x. Okay, now let's clean this up a little bit. Square x to the 1/2 is the same as a square root. So rather than keeping this as an x to the -1/2, I'm going to change that to a square root x. And then one other thing I really want you to do is not put the minus here. That looks like a subtraction. That's a negative times an 8. We're going to just make that a -8 in the front. So it'll be -8, that's my square root x, and then sine x. Plus second term, my x is to the minus a half, will it also be a square root? It'll still be a square root, but it'll be in the bottom, that's exactly right. So it'll be 4 cosine x together on top, but this term is gonna have to sink down into the bottom, so that it'll look like this, 4 cosine x over square root x. So it is still a square root, but it's a square root in the bottom. Okay, now let's read our answer, make sure that we have it fully with following directions. We want to write our answer as a single fraction with a common denominator. So if I have this plus a fraction, that's not going to cut it. If this one has the square root x on the bottom, I need to mirror that on the other side. So if I'm going to put a root x on bottom, where would I also have to multiply that? And I'm going to put it right next to the other square root x, because what happens when you multiply a square root x with another square root x? It'll just be a regular x. That's exactly right. So we're going to have this -8 regular x sine x plus 4 cosine x all over root x. Okay. But the reason I had to do this is only because of that instruction on Delta Math, that if it says as a single fraction, you would just get a common denominator. Okay, and then let me actually ask this. Can you take these x's out? No, don't do that. Okay, sine and cosine, you can't pull x out of that. That's not a GCF. Okay, all right, turn the page, please. We have one more product rule. Okay, so go ahead and start off number 4 for me. Okay, so separate it into your u times v. Then take the derivative of both pieces and give it a shot. Okay, so your u should be x squared minus 8. That makes your v e to the x. Let's take those derivatives. What is u prime going to be? 2x. And then what about the derivative of e to the x? E to the x again. Very good. Now we're ready to take our derivative. So I'm going to put dy dx equals. And then remember that it's this plus that. Okay. So it'll be x squared minus 8 e to the x plus 2x e to the x. Okay, Delta Math will count this wrong because technically it is wrong. If any of your terms have more than one piece to them, like for example here, this is an x squared minus 8. The way I have this written, only the 8 is multiplied with the e to the x. So to fix that, if you ever have more than one term, you need to just put parentheses around it. So for example, here, this is an x squared minus 8, which means I need an x squared minus 8. Okay, but you have to group it to show that this whole thing is times by that instead. Okay, then from there, is there a GCF I could take out? I can't take an x out of this one because the 8 doesn't have. What could I take out though? Do they both have an e? So let's take that out. So it'd be e to the x. What's left over would be an x squared minus 8 plus, and then what would be left over from this term? Just a 2x. Now, if you could combine like terms in here, do it. But I can't, so that's sufficient. Okay. However, for Delta Math, this first one is good enough. Okay, it would really only be for AP that you would have to go that extra step if you're trying to match your answer to something else. Okay, product rule, we kind of get it. Okay, product means you have two functions that are multiplied. Okay, quotient rule is when you have two functions that are divided. So let's write that rule down first. D dx f divide g. Okay, this one's not quite as short, but it's going to be gf prime minus fg prime over g of x squared. Okay. Then, since this is kind of a mouthful to memorize, okay, we're gonna do a little shortcut on it. Okay, whatever the top function is, instead of calling it f, we're gonna call it high, because it's on the top. And then the bottom, we're gonna call it ho. Okay, so high is whatever's on the top, ho is whatever's on the bottom. Okay, so now your equation, when you take the derivative, is going to be ho d high minus high d ho over ho squared. Okay, and then you can remember the order because then the ho's go on the court. Okay, so it's ho d high minus high d ho, and if your ho's not on the court, you got it wrong. Okay. All right, so let's look at how to do it. Okay, with our cute little, whatever. All right. Take a look at number 5. High and ho. Okay, what is high or the top of the quotient? Cosine x. What is ho or the bottom of the fraction? 4x. Now, d high and d ho are the derivatives of those. So d high is the derivative of cosine. We remember what that is? Negative sine x, right? And then d ho is the derivative of 4x, which would be what? 4. Okay, then to take the derivative, you're going to put dy dx equals, and then remember it's ho d high, that's these two, minus high d ho is these two. Okay, but just follow that right here. So ho d high is this diagonal first. So I'm going to have 4x negative sine x minus in the middle. This is different from product rule gets a plus. Quotient rule gets a minus, and then high d ho is that diagonal. So it'll be cosine x times 4. All over ho squared, which is 4x squared. Okay, now one thing that I hate that you'll for sure get wrong if you type it in like this is don't put the negative there, just put it in the front. That's really now a negative 4x sine x. Okay, negative 4x sine x. And then same thing here. We don't need cosine x times 4. Okay, you'll put the 4 in front, cosine x over 4x squared. Okay. Now you could GCF out of that, but for your delta math today, that's fine. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Number 6, will you set it up for me, please? The top is your high, the bottom is your ho, and then take your derivatives. Remember, any piece with more than one term, you'll have to put parentheses around it. Yes? Because it's part of the formula, so it's squared. So if your ho is at 4x, you'll have to put that squared. Okay, Okay, got it. Got your pieces. Okay, so now do OD high. You would have to put a +1 there, that is correct. Yep, good. Your hope's looking right. It is a good looking out right there. That's fine. Oh, wait, you did them sideways. You're fine. Oh, I love that. X squared plus X. X squared plus 1. Perfect. Now put your pieces together in your quotient. OD high. Because you times the 2 down and then the X comes down. OD high minus high D ho over ho squared. Now we're gonna time this out. Good. Okay. Wow, we're doing great. Okay, you should have this. Okay, remember it's ho D high would be 6x squared plus 1 minus high D ho over ho squared. Okay, now, one thing that is important, these parentheses have to be there, otherwise it is wrong. Delta math will count it wrong, so we'll AP. From here, the way that your Delta math asks you to find it is it says to put it in fully simplified form. What that means is that when I times this out and I times this out, some of them are going to be like terms that I can really subtract. So let's do it. I'm going to start off by double distributing here. Then I'm going to distribute here. Then I'm going to look for my like terms. So can you tell me, please, what is x squared times 6x squared? 6x4. And remember, we're adding those 2's to get to 4. Next, I want x squared times 1. What's that going to be? X squared times 1 would be 1x squared. All right, next term, we're doing a -5 times a 6. That would be a minus 30x squared. And then minus 5 times 1 is a minus 5. Okay, second term, we're taking our 2x and we're multiplying that in. What is 2x times 2x cubed? 4x4, very good. And then what about 2x times x? Okay, 2x squared. Now, the way that I have it written, this is almost right. Okay, however, do you notice that when I times this in, that whole thing was what? Minus. So I need to make sure that my minus applies to this term, which it does, but it also needs to apply to this term, which means that's really a minus 2x squared. Okay, so if you want to kind of think about it, it's like you're timesing the 2x in from this side and the negative in from this side. Okay, from there, do we see any like terms? I have a 6x4 minus a 4x4. How many of those will stay? Okay, 2x4. Next, we're going to count up our x squareds. I have a 1 minus 30. How many is that? Negative 29, and then minus 2 more. Negative 31x squared. And then the minus 5 doesn't have anybody to go with. So we'll just kind of put it at the back. Okay, then all of that over x squared minus 5 squared. Okay. I'm gonna go back and put that here. Okay. So that would be your final answer. And for delta math, you do have to do that extra step. All right, turn the page. We're gonna skip number 8 because it's very similar. We're gonna jump ahead to number 9. Okay, one of the things that's gonna come back up on your CIA, besides all the limits and stuff that we've been doing, is writing equations of tangent lines. Can you remind me, please, of the 2 ingredients that I need to write the equation of a tangent line?
The slope and the point.
Okay, point and slope. Very good. I'm gonna find the point first. We'll find the slope second. Now, for the point, they're telling me my x is a 0, so it's 0 comma something. And then remember that when I'm trying to find the rest of the point, I plug into the original, versus for the slope, do you remember we plug into the derivative? Okay, so I'm gonna write that down here. You're gonna use the original for the point. And you're gonna use f prime of x for the slope. Okay, so let's plug in our 0. So it's cosine x over e to the x. So that's cosine 0 over e to the 0. Can somebody tell me, please, what is cosine of 0? 1. What is e to the 0? 1. What is 1 divided by 1? Okay, my y value is a 1. So my xy is 0 comma 1. Next, I need the slope, which means I'm taking the derivative, but I notice that my function is a quotient. Then I need quotient rule. So my high is going to be cosine x. My ho is going to be e to the x. And then we're going to take the derivative of those pieces and write our quotient rule. If high is cosine x, what is d high? Negative sine x. D ho is the derivative of e to the x, which is still e to the x. And then remember that if this is called f, my derivative will be called f prime. And it's ho d high minus high d ho. Ho d high is this diagonal. So I'll do e to the x times negative sine x. But remember, I'm going to steal the negative and put it in the front, so it doesn't look like subtraction. So e to the x times minus sine x, just pull that negative to the front. Okay, remember, quotient rule is a minus in the middle, and then e to the x times cosine. All divide by ho squared would be e to the x. All right, now let's plug in our number. This is the slope at any x that I want, but I want the slope at my x, which is what? 0. So let's plug in as we go. This is going to be negative e to the 0, which is going to end up being a 1, times, what is the sine of 0? It is 0, minus, what is the cosine of 0? 1, and then what is e to the 0? Okay, all over. E to the 0 is 1, and then 1 squared is 1. So we have negative 1 times 0 basically is nothing. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1 over 1, which means my slope is negative 1. Okay, from here to write the equation of your tangent line, you're going to start with point slope form, which is going to be y blank equals blank x blank. Then remember, your slope fills in the middle blank, okay, which my slope in this case was a negative 1. And then my x and my y, when they go into their blanks, you have to switch the signs. So if my actual y is a positive 1, I'm going to put a minus 1. And in this case, my actual x was a 0. Well, then I'm gonna put in a -0, but we know that that'll go away in a second. Okay, if it was free response, okay, that would be perfectly fine. Okay, however, for your CIA, they're pretty much always gonna have the answer choices in y = mx + b format, which is very easy to fix. You're gonna times this number in and then add that number across. So it'll be y - 1 equals, what is -1 times x? -1x, or -x is fine. What about -1 times 0? Just be a 0 and then add your 1 across. So your final answer would be -1x + 1. Okay, but you do have to start in point slope form. You would only do this if this is how the answer choices are presented, which I can tell you for the CIA, that is how they're presented. Okay? All right, turn to the last page. Okay, this is exactly how the questions on your CIA, I think there's 2 of them, how they look. Okay, so you'll notice up here in the top, you have a chart. And in that chart, they're giving you values of f and f prime, but they're asking you to take a derivative where f is part of the function, but it's not the whole thing. So we're writing the equation of a tangent line. What are my 2 ingredients for a tangent line?
Points.
Okay, a point and, oops, not right there, and a slope. For my point, they're telling me that my x value is going to be 0. How do I get the y value? Where do I plug into? The original or the derivative? Okay, for the point, you're going to do the original. And if I plug in a 0 here, I'm going to have the cosine of 0 times f of 0. Okay, notice I'm just taking my 0 and I'm plugging it in. Cosine of 0, we said earlier, is what number? 1. How am I going to know what f of 0 is? Look at your chart. Okay, cosine of 0 is 1. And then what is f of 0? 3 is correct. 1 times 3 is 3 for my y. Next, I need the slope. And for slope, I need a derivative. Will my derivative require product rule or quotient rule? Product rule, very good. So I'm going to put here, we're going to need to use product rule. My u is cosine x. My v is f of x. Okay, because I don't just have cosine or just f, otherwise I could take the derivatives. But if they're multiplied, you need product rule for that. So cosine x is the first part of my product. What's the derivative? Negative sine x is correct. And then if I want the derivative of f, what could I call it? F, how do we say that? F prime of x, yeah? Okay, and notice what else is in your chart up here. We have numbers for f prime, okay? So this will give me my derivative. Okay, it's going to be cosine x f prime of x plus f of x negative sine x. But then remember, we hate this. We're going to put it right there instead. Don't put the negative with the multiplication. So I'm going to circle that and move it here to the front. So really, this is cosine x f prime of x minus. Okay, from here, we're plugging in R0. What is the cosine of 0? Okay, cosine of 0 is 1. What is f prime of 0? -2 is correct. Minus. Okay, then I want regular f of 0. Pull it from your chart. What's regular f of 0? 3. And then what's the sine of 0? Sine of 0 is 0. Okay, then from there, 3 times 0, that whole back is going to fall off. So really, you just have 1 times -2, which is -2. Once you have your point and your slope, that's enough information for you to write your equation of your tangent line. Will you write it, please? It's gonna be y blank equals blank x blank. Remember, slope goes in the middle. Your x and y fill in as opposites of the original values. So it should be y minus 3 equals -2, x minus 0. Okay, then if you times that -2 in, you can switch it into y equals mx plus b format. So it should be y minus 3, -2x plus 0, then add the 3 across. So it'd be -2x plus 3. Okay? But keep in mind, this is still right. It's just if you're needing to match, you would need to solve it the rest of the way. Okay, do we feel like we can do that?
Yes.
All right, last one, do number 20. You're asked to write the equation of a tangent line. Do it just like the one we just did.
We're still using the chart.
You're still using the chart. Are y'all gonna want scratch paper for your homework? No paper? No paper? There you go. Hey, we're about to switch to homework. Promise to paper. You want those scratch paper? Y'all need paper? You want them or you good? Yes. Paper? Because product rule is a different time. Quotient rule is a different time. A product means you have multiplication. Quotient means you're Will you email me? Okay, will you email me? Do you want them paper? Go on paper for the homework. Yes.
It is.
Okay, what do we know about this point? That's all right. There's gonna be I, and then find the y value. Did the x, all the x's gone, not just one. Good. You like that? Well, but it's like lots of like, like, it's like diagrams. Yeah. How did you make these flat? Did she? Oh, that girl. Did she make you cut them?
At least. That is true. That's your history so far.
All right, let's see how we did. What is f of pi? You should have used your chart. Okay. What is f of pi? Okay, use your chart. It's a -1. What is the sign of pi?
Zero.
This is the x they picked on your CIA. It's pi. That's why we're practicing it. It is 0, correct. So now let's look at the circle real quick. This is 0. This is pi. So if CIA is your benchmark, it's next class. Okay, so that's going to be your pinky finger. Because remember, if I'm on the x-axis, I want to be here. How many fingers do you have below your pinky? 0. Or if you're doing the unit circle, what would your y value be? 0. Okay, so I have a 0 plus 1 across the bottom, which means 0 plus 1 is 1. -1 divided by 1 means your y value is -1. Okay, for your slope, what rule do I need? Products rule or quotient rule? Quotient rule is correct. So my u, use QR for quotient rule. My high is going to be f of x. Ho is going to be sine x plus 1. Then I want d high and d ho. If it's an f of x, what's the derivative of that called? F prime of x, very good. And then for your sine x plus 1, what's the derivative of sine x? Cosine x. And what about the plus 1? The constant, so it goes to 0. Very good. Okay, remember, it's ho d high minus high d ho. So it's going to be sine x plus 1 times f prime of x minus f of x cosine x. All of that over what? Ho squared, which would be sine x plus 1 squared, correct. Okay, now from here, remember, this is the slope at any point that I want. I want the slope at my point, which is an x of what? Pi. So I'm going to need to know the sine of pi plus 1, f prime of pi, f of pi, and cosine pi. Let's go one at a time. What did we say the sine of pi is? 0. Then that's going to be 0 plus 1, okay, which we know is 1, but I'm going to write both. Okay, what is f prime of pi? You're going to use the chart for that. 4. F prime of pi is 4 minus. Now I want regular f of pi. What's regular f of pi? -1. And then what's the cosine of pi? -1. Very good. Now let's review how you would find that. Okay, your 0 is still your pinky. All your fingers are on top, which means it's √4/2, which is 2/2, which is 1. However, don't forget, all students take calculus. Okay, all students take calculus. If I'm at pi, what is cosine in this quadrant? What about down here? Then it's also negative in the middle. So instead of 1, we pick -1. Okay, so put that right there. Okay, then across the bottom, we already know the sine of pi we said is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. So we have a 1 squared on bottom. Okay, from there, this is 1 times 4 is 4. Is this going to come out to be positive or negative when we're done with it? So overall, it's going to be negative. These two can cross out, but I'm still going to have the minus from right there. So that's a -1. What is 4 minus 1? 3 divided by 1 squared is 3. Okay. So your equation for your tangent line will be y blank equals blank x blank. What will I put next to my y value? What number? +1. What will I put in my slope blank? 3, and what will I put in my x blank? Negative 5. There you go. Very good. All right, pull out your Chromebooks and let's do your delta. How was y'all leadership? Yeah, it's for Avid, you said?
Yeah.
Once a month?
Yeah.
You're gonna do? What? Oh, I noticed a lot of you were gone. When you finish, just email me and I'll take my.
I know. You don't gotta do that. Oh,
You can still do it, just email me and I'll take it.
Right. So, and then.
Sine, was I resetting you on that one homework?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes? Sinai, I'm sorry. Did I say your name wrong? Hey, you had my back. Thanks. Huh?
Yeah.
When I said what? I'm okay. I'm so sorry about this. I would have never done it. Yes, you can. Will you take the pass on the board? You're right. We can't be Sigma all the time though, you know? Everyone needs a little Sigma balanced with a little Delta. All right, so now you're reset. Yes.
Like finishing my
Uh-huh,
work
old
stuff.
things.
Yeah. And then like I did these two, but I have like questions that I need like a setting.
Okay, which homework is it?
It's the continuity
Uh-huh.
and the algebraic limit strategies.
Oh, have you added my AP classroom? Okay, you're on, you said continuity?
Mhm.
Okay, there are 2 resets there.
Yeah.
Okay, both finished. Were there any other ones?
And then the algebraic limit strategies.
Ooh, that is old. Just one?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay, real quick, let's take a look at this question because I don't want you to do stuff that you don't have to do. Okay, when you write it down on your paper, okay, you are going to take the derivatives just like we did. Okay, but then you're not going to actually times it all the way out because remember what I said, Delta Math will count these right. So you would do your u is 2x cubed minus 6 plus 8x to the negative 3 times. Okay, then remember it's u times v prime. What's the derivative of this piece? Just a 5, so put parentheses 5. Okay, for product rule, it's a plus in the middle. Then remember, I do this one times that one's derivative. Okay, do I need to go up a little bit? This is the first one. So I'm going to do negative 2 plus 5x And then I'm gonna multiply by this one's derivative. Okay, but remember, we're not gonna times these out and do crazy stuff. You're just gonna take the derivative pieces, put them together. What's the derivative of that? Oh, that's my phone, sorry. 6x to the squared. What happens to the minus 6? Goes away, and then what about the minus this? Ugh, stop it. So sorry, someone got kidnapped. Okay, minus X. I know. Okay, what does this go to? Okay, -3 minus 1 goes to -4. Okay. So you do not have to times that out. You will when you get to quotient rule, but not for product. Okay? You did. I just did. I just. And then you write out that. If you can do it, you just correct. Yeah. We wait till the back and comes back and then you.
Thank you. No. I'm sitting where I'm at. Oh, I think you should end the class. No. Oh. Wait, I got it. Just a little bit. I'm catching off the.
Sydney, you're reset.
Okay.
You can do it. You don't have, oh, no. You've got that. 24x.
I didn't get it wrong, so make me mad.
Oh, wait, why do you have an extra plug right there? Okay, hold on, let's check it. -6 minus 8x 5 equals 2 plus 5x. Okay, now it's good. Good job, Michelle. No, that's right, that's you, never. Never. What are we doing? Okay. Oh yeah, did y'all join my thing? It's not my thing, big classroom. You must join AP classroom. I can check. Okay, hold on, here's your code. Did one of y'all? For number 1, yeah. Cause you just don't wanna, I didn't want you to waste time figuring it all out, you just type it like that. Can you do it? Do you have, let me still see the question. This 6, that is from that. See, I was at 2x3, so it should be a 6x2. And then I think now that's right. There we go, very good, thank you for joining, Barrett. Yeah, you did. What does that mean? How do I become Uncle status? How?
Either are you?
I think I'm probably not. I could be maybe on to that. Maybe what I have, what it takes for that. Did you join? And then do like add a class or something? Well, you have to be signed it. Let's see. Oh, good. What a nice friend. Yes, you just take the password there.
Yeah.
Did you guys all join each classroom? Good. Yes?
Oh, that's good.
It's okay. It's gonna be fun. It'll be curved because it's a college board assignment. Nothing? Nothing at all. Your CIA will go in as your last test for the quarter.
Oh my gosh, I gotta go.
But I have a plan. Annie, you're reset. Who am I resetting?
Me.
Who's me?
He did.
Oh, okay.
I literally did that. I don't know.
Yes? Okay. Hang on 1 second. Okay, y'all, real quick, when you get to this question, okay, it's the second from the bottom on the product rules. We're gonna need to do that one together. Okay, it's second from the bottom on the product rules. Okay, I can wait another couple minutes, so if you want. Oh, you need the code. Here you go. GG 4A 7. 4A 7. Why can't you do it now? Oh, okay. You have time. You can do it now. I think most people aren't quite there.
I like to say that. Yeah, well, this. It's like you go to a different.
Oh yeah, did you join my classroom? Oh, okay, but are you gonna forget? Okay.
I'll do it once I get to the question that I get.
Okay. Yes, I'll. Yeah. Maybe if it won't load. Really, it's by next class you have to be in. Blomik, you said number 2?
Okay, so but I always do the same thing, but. Okay, so this. Basically, I don't want to know like.
All right, Blomik, you're reset. Are you still working on that homework definition of a derivative, Blomik? Oh, okay. You did, but it was because of the late penalty, but I took it off. Good, I see you have joined. They're very good. How we doing? Amy? Dyson, how's it going? Are you? Do you already remember this? So when you take a little bit of break, and put your head down, so you feel like.
No, I understood.
Okay, perfect.
If I didn't understand it.
Okay, good. Yes. So you're gonna have to times out the top, and then you should end up with like term thing. It'd be fifth, you're adding. Yes. And then minus times those together. Yes, very good. Yes. We'll leave that the same. You don't have to mess with the host group.
It's just how.
Yes. Yes, never mess with the host. So -2 times -5 will be a +10. And then what would your new power be? Since you're -2 minus 1. And then remember, just type in parentheses times that. Don't actually times amount. So like, what ones do you want? 2? So like, look, when you type in your answer, you don't want to actually times it out. So like, you want it to look like that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you'll just do this times this plus this times this. And don't like,
There we go.
times it all the way out. Got it? So they have, this times this, or plus this times that one. All right, we still have 25 minutes left in class. Will you skip ahead? Will you skip ahead to the second from the bottom of the level 2s? Okay, so I'm going to show you on what I want. I want this one right here. So out of all your level 2s, I want you to go second from the bottom. We're going to do this one together. Write it down on your paper. Okay, not the bottom level 2, but the one right before. Okay. So the second to last level 2. Oh no, it is gonna expire. Then I can't give you any more homework. Okay. So the question is x squared minus 5x squared sine x. Okay. Here is the question that I want us to do together real quick. Okay. Should you do this? Watch and tell me if this is right or wrong. My u is x squared minus 5x. My v is sine x.
That's wrong.
That's wrong. Okay, of course it's wrong because I'm making you do it. But that would be if the problem said this. Right? That's not what it says. So if it had parentheses here, this would have been totally fine. Okay, but it doesn't say that, so let's start over. If it's x squared minus 5x squared times sine x, the only part that you have a product rule is here. This is not part of the product. So what is the derivative of x squared? I don't need product rule for that. What's the derivative of x squared? 2x. And then behind that, I'll put my product rule. Okay, but this term is not part of the product. It's not multiplied by anything. So let's break down this part. My u is a minus 5x squared. My v is a sine x. What is u prime? Negative 10x. Now notice I'm including the subtraction in the first part of my product. Okay, what's the derivative of sine x? Cosine x. So then it's going to be uv prime plus vu prime. So it'll be minus 5x squared cosine x minus 10x sine x. Okay, this is the part of the product that's a product rule. Okay, but your 2x is not part of the product. Okay, does that make sense?
Why needed?
Because the x squared is not multiplied by anything. This is x squared minus, and then just the 5x squared and the sine x are times together. Okay, and you only have to worry about that in the very next question. Okay, so make sure that if they didn't intentionally group these, then these are not you together, only that is here. Can you set that level for me? Yes, sure.
Do we have to combine the two x's and negative two?
Do we have to combine